Hi, my name's Kim, and I'm going to share with you my story. Growing up, I was raised in a very tight, loving family. I had a sister, and we were taught to respect God. We weren't really raised in any kind of denomination. A little bit later on in life, we were more involved with Catholic Church, but it was always like on Easter or Christmas. So I always had a fear of God and doing something wrong, and He'd be mad at me. And then if I was good, then He wouldn't be mad at me. And that's about as far as my relationship with God went. So growing up, we moved quite a bit. I went to 4 different high schools, and we lived in many states. So I was constantly having to really lean on my family unit for love and encouragement and support. We finally moved to Colorado, and I still didn't have a relationship with God at all. I still just had a fear of doing right and wrong things. So when we moved to Colorado, I was in high school. I had dated some guys, and I was actually in a relationship for quite a while. It was about 3 or 4 years. And then I met Jim, and he was dating a friend of mine. And when we met, I kind of, of course, we were both dating other people, so I was trying not to be interested. And he was a bodybuilder, and I wasn't familiar with that at all. So we met a couple times, with mutual friends. We'd go do things like go to the fair or whatever. And the more and more we were together, the more and more you cannot deny the chemistry and the pull that we had for each other. It was so strong. So as, of course, the time went on, and if you want to know more about our relationship, I'll leave a link down below because it's a good story. But as we went along, we realized that this is it. I knew this was the guy, and there was no denying it. So while we were dating, this is my first encounter with God. So Jim was raised a Christian, so he was in a family devout Christians. And so I told him one day that I was afraid of dying. And he said, well, why are you afraid of dying? Because you'll be able to be with Jesus. And I thought, well, what is that? I knew who Jesus was, but I didn't understand the whole relationship. So he said to me, all you have to do is ask Jesus into your heart, and you'll be saved, and you'll be able to go to heaven, and you'll have eternal life. And he explained it to me, and that day I gave my life to Jesus. So about a year into the relationship, we decided to get married. And then we moved pretty early. We moved to Idaho to be closer to my family and to work with my family. So this was great for me, growing up in a family that's so close, and they were so supportive in everything that I did. And even though I had accepted Jesus in my heart, and He was my Savior, I didn't have my relationship yet. And so to me, I still was leaning on that family unit, not even really my husband so much, but more my family, to provide everything for me: love, nurturing, caring, everything. So when we moved to Idaho, it was comfortable for me. It was where I needed to be, and I didn't really need to search for anything else outside of that because I had that family unit. So Jim and I were married for probably about 12 years. And we worked in the same company. It was a family-run company. But he worked in a store, part of the company, and I worked in a warehouse. So we were, close, but not in the same building. So I started to suspect that something was going on with Jim. And we've always been so close. We've been best friends, and we always just really clicked really well. So we never really had marital problems, just your typical stuff. But we always had this intuition about each other because we're just so close. And so people even thought we were brother and sister. I just had this intuition that something was going on. So I happened to check his phone, and sure enough, there was this phone number that I didn't know who it was, because it just wasn't something that I would think would happen, but it did. So I called this number, and a female answered, and I hung up, and I approached Jim about it, and of course he denied it. So my dad actually hired a private investigator, and it came to me, and my dad came to me and said, something's happening, something's going on. So when I found out from my dad that the private investigator said that something was going on, I could not believe it. This was just heartbreaking, and something that Jim would never do. I just could not believe, because like I said, we didn't have a bad marriage, and he wasn't the type of guy that did something like this. I mean, he was always very attentive to me and our son Tyler, and it was beyond me. I was just, my ground fell apart. So I decided that I first of all needed to seek God. I'd been going to church. We went to church as a family, Jim and our son Tyler, but we never really, we weren't really seeking a relationship with God. And so now I'm on bended knees, and now I'm seeking God. Now I need a relationship. Luckily, I had a good relationship with my mother-in-law, and she helped me to start to read and pray to God about this and what am I supposed to do. Meanwhile, I'm trying to raise our son, who has no idea what's going on. He's about 9 at this time. So, maybe a little bit younger. Anyways, so I'm praying a lot and asking God to give me the strength to get through this and to lead me and show me which way to go. Jim continued to go with this affair, and after he moved out a couple of times and come back and said, oh, no, it's over, whatever, I finally had it, because I had another investigator come in and say it's still going on. Now by this time, Jim has lost his job at my family's business, and so now he's working for a competitor, basically. So I even approached Jim and I said, is this what you want? You want a divorce? Is this what you want? Because this is what's going to happen. I'm not going to stick around for this and raise a son by myself, with you not being present. And he had no answer for me whatsoever. So I decided that I decided that was it. I had lost my best friend and my husband. And you know, I come from a family, both sides, that nobody's ever been divorced. We all have long-lasting, very loving relationships. So this is like brand new to me. So I served Jim papers, and I remember getting a phone call, and he said, "I'm not doing this. I can't do this." And you know, part of me is thinking, well, should have thought of that before, because it's been going on for a year. But he came to me and he said, "I'll do anything. I'll do anything. Anything." And I said, "Okay, you have to end it right here, right now." And I made him make the phone call in front of me and end it right there. Of course, I still am guarded up. I'm still not sold. And I'm still seeking God to get me through this. And I'm asking God, you know, to lead the way, give me the strength, help me to still be a good mom during all this. But mostly my biggest thing was I needed to keep my integrity. And I always tell women when they ask me about this in an affair, is that you've got to keep that integrity. It's so important, because when it was all over, I was so glad that I wasn't this ugly, terrible person. I stuck with God, and I kept my peace and worked through it with Him. So we decided to stay together. I told Jim I couldn't live in Idaho any longer. I said, we've got to get out of here, because I can't be around something that's been going on for a year. There's just way too many connections. So Jim being in this new job, I mean, he'd only been in it for maybe 3 or 4 months, went to his boss and said, if anything ever opens up in Oregon or Washington, we even gave him the choice, Oregon or Washington, please let me know, because we really need to move from Idaho. A week later, God answered our prayers. And He said, if you want to go to Washington, I have something open in Washington. Jim said, I'm there. So Jim left. Within a week, he was gone. We had our house up for sale. So God sold our house within a week, all cash. So then I'm thinking, okay, God, this is what you want me to do. Now, you're going to have to give me a heart of forgiveness, because I can't do it by myself. So God gave me a heart of forgiveness. Jim started saying all the right things. I mean, and if you've ever been through an affair and you were able to stay with your husband, you know exactly what I mean. They just start speaking a different language. It can only come from the heart. So by the time Tyler and I, our son, by the time Jim came and got us and we moved to Washington, it was a whole different relationship. And not only have I built my relationship with God, but now I'm starting a new relationship with my husband. And we just came into Washington, and it was a brand new start. We're so excited to have our own little family unit. I had my new walk with God. Jim was starting his walk with God again. And we were ready to go. So now we're in Washington. It's just the 3 of us. We're loving it. Jim's decided to quit his job from the competitor and start working for a Christian retailer, which was Family Christian, which is closed now. But so he started with Family Christian. God is present in our lives. He's bringing us together. We're being a part of church. We're becoming members. Jim's having men's Bible studies, and we're just developing as a family. The love with Jim and I is reconnecting. We're becoming best friends again, and I'm learning to trust him. And God is just moving in our lives, moving in our lives. It's just a beautiful time, beautiful time. So we're there for about a year, and Jim comes home one day from work and he says, I feel like I have the flu. He says, I feel like I have the flu. And I said, okay. He says, but it's kind of weird. It feels weird in different places. So 2 days go by and he's super sick. So we go to have blood tests, and his muscle enzymes are through the roof, which we're thinking, okay. So about a week goes by, we found out that his CKs are through the roof. They're thinking he has hepatitis or something. A week goes by, he can't even walk up the stairs. His muscles hurt so badly that he could not give a customer change with his hand. He had to push his hand out to give them change. I mean, this is just like, what's going on, right? So it just dives from by the time. So this hit in the middle of October, late part of October. By December, he had to quit his job, and he could not walk. And we're having to look. He couldn't swallow. He couldn't do anything for himself. He couldn't go to the bathroom by himself. And being that we were closer to God, but yet not as tight with our relationship, we were kind of just taking the steps to the next day. Okay, what are we gonna do today? Okay, what do we have to deal with today? And every day was a doctor's appointment or some uphill battle or something. And I look back now, and I know that God got me through it somehow, because I'm having to be a mom too, to a young child, and take care of my husband, which we have no idea what's going on. I think in retrospect, I was thinking, it's just gonna go away. It's gonna go away. So it didn't really involve God, and I wish I would have. I mean, I prayed, help Jim get better, help Jim get better. And I really wasn't counting on God to give me the strength. I wasn't praying for it, but I was getting through it. Somehow I was getting through it. And I was working, and I was raising our son Tyler, and taking care of Jim, and now Jim is homebound. He can't even, he literally cannot do anything, including swallowing his own spit. His own spit. So, as time progresses, and we realize that this is bad, he has to have a feeding tube so he can't eat. We have church family. Now, remember, we have no family here in the state of Washington, but we've become part of a church family. Praise Jesus for that. They help me get through the first part as this progresses on, and my husband's having to get medication that is $50,000 each time, and he was having to get it every 2 weeks. I had a church family that was supporting me, loving me, asking how Jim's doing, praying for us. We didn't have any money. Jim's got no job. I'm working actually at the church's coffee shop, which, as you might know, it's not a lot of money. So we're barely putting food on the table and paying our rent and stuff, and God sends this angel that helps us pay for the food for his feeding tube. So already God is just protecting us all along the way, even though we're having to deal with these scary moments where we thought Jim was going to die. I mean, he's had to have blood transfusions. He's rushed to the hospital numerous times to the ER. I mean, I can't even tell you. And God was just always present, even though I wasn't making it very prevalent to myself. He was there, and he was taking care of everything. So as this gets older, it's 10 years that we're dealing with this. We're still a strong family unit. We're involving God more, we're praying more, we're trying to lead our son to a godly life too, you know, so we're making sure he's involved with youth group and church, and making sure that he knows that God is part of our life. And he asked the question, then why doesn't God care my dad? For a 12-year-old, 11-year-old, 10-year-old, this is a hard question. Because it's a hard question for adults. Why doesn't God fix it? And you know, there's no answer. Sometimes there's just not an answer. But we have to, as an adult, try and tell ourselves that, you know, God will get us through this. God will help us get through this. He will provide, and we may not know all the reasons down here on earth. Eventually, we'll know. We do know that because of this walk through this disease, I can't be away from Jim 8 hours a day. So we decide that we need to we need to build a company where we can work at home, so I can be with him all the time. And so that's where God's 411 came from. It came right after he got so sick. I mean, it was within months. God actually gave Jim the name God's 411 one day, just came to him. And so thus started God's 401 and our ministry, and a way for me to be a caregiver and be able to provide for a family. It is an amazing gift, and God continues to provide for us. Even though we change up God's 401 a little bit, it's always God. God is always the leader. He's always our forefront. He's why we do what we do. So when you look back and you think, why am I going through this disease? We wouldn't have God's 401 if it weren't for that disease. And we're so grateful for that, because we can reach so many people. We can do so much of God's work right here with God's 401. So we're so grateful that God has provided that for us. So you tell your son, I don't know. I wish he would, of course, but I don't know. So Jim is sick for 15 years, 16 years. He still has the disease. He actually has 2 diseases. But you know what? We get through it. He's at least better today than he was. He's not in a wheelchair. He doesn't have a feeding tube. He can swallow his spit, which is a big deal. So now we're in a new place. We wanted to get a house for our son, and we had to move somewhere that was pretty isolated, and being an hour and a half away from major stores to grocery shop and stuff. But we really wanted a house for our son, And it was a nice place because it was a close-knit community, and we got involved in church right away there. And it was a move that we really prayed about. God really helped us get there, and finding out that it was going to be a better place in some aspects, but a really bad place in others. So we moved to a small town, Ocean Shores, Washington. And it, like I said, it was a great place. We got involved with a big church there. It's the only church really there, Christian church. Great community. And then we actually helped church plant a church, which was a lot of fun to be a big part of that. That was really great for Jim because it really helped him to focus on his studies, which he had studied to be a pastor during his sickness. So this was a great time for him to kind of implement some of that. And so we were really involved with that church, met a lot of great people. They continued to support us, not financially, but mentally and spiritually, physically. If I ever needed anything, they were right there. It was a very tight group. So that was really nice. But then our son, he was involved, extremely involved in youth group, and all the kids in youth group. They're a great group of kids, really believed in Jesus. They were on fire, went on retreats. I mean, it was a great group. Tyler was an amazing person. And to go back about Tyler, Tyler was another gift from God, because Jim and I had tried forever to get pregnant, could not get pregnant, tried IVIG, tried infertilization, or artificial, and could never get pregnant. Decided to adopt, had a girl. We were going out the door to pick up the baby at the hospital, and the lawyer was right there at the door and said, "I'm sorry," she decided to keep it. It was very, very hard. We were very devastated. But God came through yet again, because a week later we had another baby. This one was 6 months old. The girl was ready to give him up for adoption like that day. So we met her. We had Tyler in 2 days. It was a scary time because the parents weren't terminated yet. We couldn't find the father to terminate him. But God wanted this baby in our lives, and we're so grateful. This kid was amazing, and I know every parent can say that about their kids, but this guy was charismatic and on fire for God. He was the kid that was 8 years old, standing up in the middle of the church praying for everybody in the middle of the church. And I mean, it was a kind of prayer where you're like, oh my goodness, I wish I prayed like that. He was just amazing. So he was very much a part of this youth group in Ocean Shores, was on fire for God. Praise Jesus, he was saved. Because Jim took his pastoralship, he was able to baptize him, which was just another step in his faith, and it was a great statement. But Tyler was very headstrong and promiscuous, and got a couple of girls pregnant, was feeling the burden of life too greatly on him, had ran away from home, was truant in school. He was still in high school, was truant in school. Because we were in a tight group, we had policemen watching him because we knew the policemen. So they knew where he was when he ran away. We knew exactly where he was at all times, and if he was safe, who he was with. He was the type of kid that if we brought home, he would just run away again. So we were trying to keep tabs on him, keep close tabs on him, make sure he was safe. Of course, prayed day and night that he would come home. But he pretty much said, "I'm done, Mom," which was very heartbreaking. So, long story short, we couldn't get him home. He got married just quickly to somebody he didn't know very well. This was the second child that he had. They were maybe married 5-6 months, maybe. Had the baby after they got married, within 4 or 5 months. And then we were planning a Christmas vacation. We were so excited because we were really trying to get to know her, and we were really trying to establish a relationship with him so that he would come back to the family unit. So we were working really hard on that relationship, spent Thanksgiving together, and we're excited about this Christmas vacation. And I got a phone call from his wife early in the morning after she had just texted me and said, "I'm so excited to get going." She called me and she said that Tyler was gone. And I said, "What do you mean?" And in my head and my heart, I knew exactly what she meant. So I handed the phone to Jim, and I knelt down and I just prayed. I knew it was true. I knew there was nothing that we could do. But I prayed to God that Tyler was with him and he was happy. And it was true. Tyler had taken his life. So, how do you deal with the death of a child? You know, you're supposed to outlive. Your child is supposed to outlive the parent. How do you deal with this? A suicide. How do you deal with that? You know what? We don't know why this happens. Tyler was saved, so we know he's in heaven. So now we've decided we've got to get out of here. We've been trying to sell the house for a little while because we felt like we needed to be a little closer to civilization and hospitals and all that with Jim. So we couldn't sell it. So we asked God, you know, we just can't stay here. This is too much. And we said, what do we do? So we put it up for foreclosure. We quit paying our mortgage and our house went in foreclosure. And, you know, all along this way, as hard as everything was, God always provided. He always provided. It was never easy. It was never just like sit back and go, oh, a piece of cake. It was constant prayer, constant tears, constant battle. And one big thing I did learn during a lot of this is that I was honest with God. I had it out with him. And it was such a big builder for my relationship with him because I was honest. He knew how I felt anyways. So why not sit there and yell at him and tell him, I don't get this, I don't like it, you're not here for me, you don't love me, blah, blah, blah. And it, you know, he listened. He was a father and he listened, he cared. He knew how I felt. And he was there for me. So now our house is in foreclosure and I know he's gonna provide. I've seen it, I know he's gonna do it. So I stayed packed in boxes and waited for God. He would show us where he wanted us to go. So it comes down to, we have 2 weeks. We have a sheriff's note on the door that says you gotta get out or I'm taking your furniture and putting it on the street. So we're like, okay, what are we gonna do in 2 weeks? And so, Jim's freaking out. Jim's like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? And I'm going, God's gonna have to do it, because I can't do it. God's gonna have to do it. So I got online, I picked 4 houses, 3 or 4 houses. I picked 3 houses. I picked 3 houses, sight unseen, online. Now we have no credit because we're in foreclosure, and our credit was awesome. And now it's just terrible, right? So I write all 3 of these people and say, can we rent your house? We're looking to rent. Can we rent your house? And we've been looking for a couple months and couldn't find anything because they were just going so fast. So I write, 15 minutes later, this one house comes back, and I'm like, okay, God, this is the house you want to see, and I have no idea what it looks like, I have no clue. So we drive up a couple days later, and the lady shows us the house, and Jim and I are looking at each other and going, there's no way that we're renting this house. There's no way. How could this even happen? I mean, it was inexpensive, great for us, perfect size, great neighborhood, safe. We'd never even been to the town before. We didn't even know about the town that we were living in. And it was God. It was just God. He wanted us right here. It's perfect. We waited on Him, and it was perfect. We couldn't ask for anything else. So, we're in a new house. We've continued to deal with the death of a son, and what does that look like? I mean, holidays, birthdays, just anything. What do you do? What do you do without a child? You're supposed to, live with them and go through their life with them. And anyways, so we're in this new house, and we've got it starting new. Jim still has his disease. He's still sick. I still have to do pretty much everything for him. He can't put a sweatshirt on or a t-shirt or tie his shoes. He can go to the bathroom with help. I'm getting up. So he's still pretty sick, still having $50,000 worth of medication. That's just one type. On top of all the others, painkillers and steroids and everything else. So, we're ready. We're ready to continue to connect with God, build our relationship with God, and continue to trudge along in this crazy time in our life. So it's going good. We're developing a relationship. We get involved in a church. Jim's doing better, and he decides he wants to get off all his medication. He's put down the gauntlet. This is it. And God's going to have to do this. God's going to have to come in a big way. We've seen Him do it. He's going to have to do it this time. So He does. Jim gets off all his medication. All of it. Painkillers, everything. His disease can come back with a vengeance, and still can. But he did it, and he's getting stronger. He's, able to do, open a water bottle. He's able to do it by himself. So, praise Jesus again. He comes through. And we're so excited just to get closer back to our friendship and back to our relationship as a couple. Because we really didn't have one for 15 years. He was so sick. We're doing good. And all of a sudden, we noticed that I can't walk really well. Something's wrong with my leg or my back or my hip or something. So I'm thinking it's my back. So I go and I have all these tests, and I can't find anything. And so my leg's getting worse. I drag my foot, I can't pick it up. And we find out that I have MS. So now we have another disease that we have to deal with. At first you get the news and it's almost like cancer. I mean, it's a bad disease that isn't curable and is progressive. And immediately in my head I'm thinking, I'm going to be in a wheelchair and I won't be able to eat, and we're going to be doing everything that Jim was doing, and now I'm going to have to do it. Jim was beside himself because he'd not only been off medication for maybe a month, he was thinking, okay, now we can have, some peace for a while. But I tell you, in everything that we've gone through, and watching God come through, I have MS. And God's going to provide. And I wake up every day, and I thank God that I can still see, that I still have hands to hug my husband, that I can still hear as best as I can. I mean, I'm practically deaf, but I can at least hear my husband say, I love you. I can still walk the way I need to get somewhere. I mean, I have a roof over my head and food in my stomach. I have nothing to complain about, nothing. I am so thankful that I have God to get me through this, that He's always been there. And we're going to be good. We're going to be okay. And we're going to make it through this. We always have.